Good afternoon. Welcome to the Defense in Depth panel, the session, AI-enabled warfighters and warfighting, foundations for talent and technology at speed and scale. At this time, I'd like to ask the members of the audience to silence their phones and remind you that at some point during this discussion, there will be question and answer. The microphone is here at the center. Please come up and identify yourself and your affiliation, and please have a question. I have the pleasure of introducing the moderator for the panel, Admiral Anne Rondeau. Retired Vice Admiral Anne Rondeau was appointed as President, Naval Postgraduate School in 2019. Prior to her appointment, Admiral Rondeau served as the 6th President of the College of DuPage. Her most recent military position was as the President of the National Defense University, a consortium of 5 colleges and 9 research centers in Washington, D.C. In 1985, she was selected and served as the White House Fellow in a Reagan administration and went on to serve as Deputy Commander of the U.S. Transportation Command in Illinois. Pentagon Director and Chief of Staff for the U.S. Navy Staff, Commander of the Navy Personnel Development Command in Virginia, Commander of the Naval Science Training Command at Great Lakes, Illinois, Pacific Fleet Staff Chief of Command in Hawaii, Commanding Officer of Naval Support Activity in Tennessee, and other staff and commanding responsibilities with policy, planning, fleet support, joint logistics, training, and education. Rondeau retired from the U.S. Navy as a 3-star admiral in 2012 and was the second woman to have achieved that rank in the Sea Service. She then served as partner and later an independent consultant with the IBM Watson Group. Rondeau holds a BA from Eisenhower College, an MA from Georgetown University, and an EDD from the College of Education at Northern Illinois University in DeKalb. She also holds an honorary doctorate in public service from the Carthage College and an honorary doctorate in humane letters from Rosalind Franklin University of Medicine and Science in Chicago, Illinois. Admiral Rondeau, thank you. I turn this over to you.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and when we talk on the mics, please be Elvis, all right? Be Elvis and eat the microphone. Okay, I wanted to completely change up what the plan was. The plan was I was going to give you a couple of minutes of very nice narrative, and then I was going to do things and then to set up questions. We're going to do away with my talking about anything because in our green room conversation, it was so electric and so good that I want to set up our speakers as truly a conversation where they're not going to always agree with each other, where they'll ask each other some questions, and then you could be part of that dynamic and come up and have that same conversation. So you would think that in this particular topic, that deep seek would be the first thing we would talk about. It is not. It's about our ability to use AI in the most productive way possible and to beat back and to be able to compete with DeepSeek or the next thing that comes up. So what I want to do is have our panelists introduce themselves, and then we'll start the debate. So let's start from the very end. Admiral Brooks.
I can figure this out.
I think it's on.
Is it on? Oh, fantastic. Which goes to my first point I'm going to make. Hello. Good afternoon. Admiral Mike Brooks. I'm the commander of Office of Naval Intelligence, and I am a political science major twice over, not a technologist. And so when it comes to the question and answer period, please be gentle. Commander of O&I, been there about 19 months, responsible for delivering maritime decision advantage to the fleet, to DoD, to the intelligence community, to national level leaders. So looking to turn information or data into intelligence as quickly and as efficiently and effectively as possible. In that realm, I deal with large amounts of data, more amounts of data than I can ever throw people at. And so I look to AI, ML as a tool to help me more efficiently turn data into intelligence. And gosh, I think I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Alice Breeding.
Okay. Hey, good afternoon, Christopher Sweeney. I'm the Director of Integrated Warfare, not artificial intelligence, but it comes up a lot. So in my day job, I'm integrating the POM with my N80 brothers and sisters. And then really what I've been focused on is helping CNO talk about warfighting, warfighters in the foundation, and implement her 2024 NAV plan. Two ways I'm directly doing that. One in the warfighting integration NIF, which is the NIF of all NIFs. If you haven't heard what the NAV plan implementation framework is, we've kind of cut it down to 5+4 cross-functional teams. Think counter C5 ISRT, long-range fires, contested logistics, C2, and then the enablers, LVC, artificial intelligence, robotic autonomous systems. And so I'm integrating that. I'm looking, the CNO's given us 2 tasks in the NAV plan. One, be ready for 2027. She's not saying that. President Xi said he would be ready, so she is saying the Navy will be ready in 2027. So what are the levers, investments, policies? What can we move between now and 2027? I said I'm working on POM 27, but we are working frantically to see what we can move in 25 and 26 because they're not over the finish line yet. And then in building enduring advantage is the other piece of that. And then I also have the robotic autonomous systems NIF, which I am working to implement all the fleet experimentation, all the investment, all the enablers, all the robots that are going on from the Black Sea all the way to Indo-PACOM. And how I'm doing that, frankly, is with acquisition into industry directly. We sat on a replicator panel this morning that talked specifically about that from the resourcing side and then from the fleet. The fleet, so working on the key operational problem directly, driving that all the way up into the Pentagon and trying to solve that. So those are the kind of my 3 day jobs.
Thank you, Admiral. Colonel?
I am a fish out of water here. I understand that, so thank you for allowing this young Army guy to sit up here on this esteemed panel, and a proud West Point graduate. So my name is Lieutenant Colonel, that was a bad year, Lieutenant Colonel Charlie Rowan. I'm a former armor officer turned simulations officer, and I have the honor of leading serving as the director of the Modeling Virtual Environments and Simulation Institute at Naval Postgraduate School, the MOVES Institute, where we have about 25 graduate students at the master's and PhD level and 20 faculty researchers. And we are responsible for the research and the education of M&S at MPS to our joint force and to a lot of our international partners. And so I think that we have a unique opportunity in the M&S world to explore those things that aren't necessarily real yet, to look at the synthetic environment and train things like AI, where we want to deploy them in the future. We can have the opportunity to do that now where it's safe and in different environments. So being able also to produce graduates that wear a uniform, that have an understanding, but more so a mastery of these subjects, these topics, and these capabilities as they return to the fleet and to the force to provide enhanced capability, and really, that's the decision advantage to commanders. And those graduates will then grow up one day to wear stars and then have a better understanding of what the world may be. But we're giving them that understanding at NPS through leveraging a lot of partnerships they were able to have with industry as well. So we're able to maintain an advantage there by having the state-of-the-art innovation that's happening at NPS through our warfighters. So the operational experience that mixes with the latest that is available from industry is a wonderful relationship they're able to have. And I would just, from the Army side, encourage others to follow suit. And I know I'm biased here, but where we send folks afterwards, and the Marine Corps does a great job of this as well, sending folks out for utilization to be that value in an organization to a commander. I would love to see that more grow and for more services, specifically the Navy, because the Naval Postgraduate School is producing incredible value when it comes to the students and what they're able to learn and gather while they're at school there. I'm thinking also of a leader a few years ago who mentioned, we live in a time of change, never-ending change, a new world, a world where we deal with things that we know now, but also the unfathomed mysteries that we don't in the universe. And through this welter of change, our mission remains fixed, determined, and viable, and that is to win our wars. And Douglas MacArthur said that over 60 years ago, and that still remains true today, specifically when we talk about AI. So I look forward to the conversation this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. Lieutenant.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Artem Sherbinin. I'm currently serving as the Chief Technology Officer for the U.S. Naval Surface Forces Command here in Coronado, or across the bay in Coronado. I also lead the Surface Navy's Artificial Intelligence Task Force. So the Navy is organized around AI differently than the other services. We have 6 AI task forces. I'm honored to represent them here, but we also have the AI NIF back there, which is the AI component of CNO's NAV plan implementation framework. So those task forces, while they're domain-oriented, so I'm in the surface one, they integrate and ultimately integrate with other capabilities such as the WIN. So they are not they're not siloed. But I also wear another hat. I'm the executive secretary for AI and data on the Secretary of the Navy's Science and Technology Board. So get to see AI in the Navy from S&T through acquisitions all the way to sustainment and actual operationalization in the fleet. So looking forward to your questions.
So think about this. The Navy has a lieutenant who is a CTO for Surface Navy Forces. That is a really good thing to have those younger minds who are really into all this. So great job for you, Artem. Okay, Captain.
Good afternoon, everyone. Captain Ace Padilla, Naval Academy grad, mechanical engineer. I'm also a Comstrat officer at in the information environment. I am an operations research student at NPS, and I think with this STEM foundation that I have, the experience that I have, it definitely provides me that technological advancement capability and the analyst mindset. I think that helps me a lot to succeed. And I think where the science meets the art of warfare, I believe, is being able to use these AI tools that I'm learning here at NPS and provide decision makers how to win wars and get ahead of the information environment.
Thanks, Captain. Howard Pace.
I'm Howard Pace. I am enlisted in the Navy, became a Chief Petty Officer, came up through the submarine ranks, went to the enlisted commissioning program, Surface Warfare Officer, Call of the Peace Dividend Wars, then went to the postgraduate school, retooled myself into an engineering duty officer, retired as Chief Engineer Naval Communications at NAVWAR, then became a member of the Senior Executive Service. I was a PEO and did that for many years. Left that, became a vice president in industry for 8 years building satellites. And now at the postgraduate school, I teach acquisition, disruptive acquisition. I run 2 research groups. One's called Kraken that focuses on robotic autonomous systems, supporting Task Force 66 out of ComNav Europe. And then also I am the N9I chair for Admiral Sweeney, working robotic autonomous systems on the strategy and campaign plan and enterprise rollout for robotic autonomous systems.
Thanks, Howard. Admirals, we have the CNO giving us a lot of guidance from Project 33 and the NAV plan. Let's cut to the chase. You both are in the world of the fighting from the mock. And how does AI have an impact upon your being able to do that? Admiral Sweeney, I'll ask you first.
Okay, fighting from the mock, that's a lot. There's a lot there. I mean, we're talking enhanced decision
Chris,
making.
could bring your mic up?
I'm sorry. Okay, so fighting from the mock, we're talking about a lot there. Admiral Kaler talked about maneuver and fires. I mean, clearly from the decision support aid side, battle management aid, in-flight up to IF2s, being able to sensor to shooter data. AI is going to play a pivotal role in that. We're working through that. Predictive maintenance and readiness is all going to fold into that. Training and simulation. I mean, we talk about the high-end fight. We're going to need to do that in a live virtual constructive environment so our near-peer adversaries don't see how we're training. So we're working diligently how to figure that out. I think for me, as I look at whether it's in the WIN, the Warfighting Integration NIF, or the Robotic Autonomous Systems NIF, what comes to mind every day is not necessarily AI ML, but the data. Because you don't get AI ML until you figure out the data, how the data is tagged, curated. I think it's siloed a little bit right now, maybe a lot in some places between Title 50, Title 10, across domains, across the enterprise. And so we really need to figure out that architecture. There's a lot of people trying to solve that. I do think, I'll turn it over to Admiral Brooks, but on the O&I side, they really have done they're really ahead, in my opinion, on that. And so we're working through that with industry and the government.
Thanks for the question, ma'am. When I think of how AI ML will enable fighting from the mock, I think of it in two ways. First, as always, as an intelligence professional, I think of it as threats and adversary and capabilities. And so it gets back to my original opening comments about O&I, the Navy's Service Intelligence Center, responsible for parsing through large amounts of data to develop intelligence that informs warfighter decision makers. In this case, the warfighter is the decision makers in the mock. It could be carrier strike groups, it could be the National Security Council, it could be a command, but in the mock, we're talking about the fleet commander who is fighting the distributed maritime force from the mock. So that's one of my customers. So AI ML helps me develop data and turn it into information expeditiously, more quickly, more accurately to inform their decision making. The other piece, I'm going to go a little bit broader and think of it as an IW professional, right? So when we talk about what the MOC needs to do for that distributed maritime force, and there's distributed maritime operations, it's much like what an IWC would do for a carrier strike group. That is, maneuver those forces to get to the objective and execute the mission in a manner in which they avoid detection as they ingress and egress and are able to execute. That involves understanding the intel piece, the threat, but also the environment in which they're operating and how that environment, whether it be the ionosphere or bottom bounce acoustic, sound channels, how that influences the adversary's ability to detect and engage them. And so having AI ML tools will help decision makers in the mock put all that together, the threat picture, the environment, to them be able to make informed decisions on how to maneuver that force, both in time and space and in the electromagnetic spectrum.
That's great. So we're going to come back and have the panelists ask each other some questions. But Colonel, when the Admiral is discussing the IW and everything else and the interdisciplinary nature of his work, I think about .mil PF, and then as a faculty member and as a simulator, you've got some thoughts on that.
I do, ma'am, and I think that there are some things that are maybe easy to change. So the Army has the AI2C, the Army AI Integration Center. So nested at Carnegie Mellon, for instance, that's one aspect where we can just kind of do things a little bit different in how we structure ourselves organizationally and how we leverage, in my community, the Functional Area 57, the simulation community, have folks who go on a track specifically looking at artificial intelligence and put them in places like that would be of higher need than just running at a battle sim center, for instance, that are running large constructive exercises. There will always be a home for that. That's great. But if we can learn to leverage a lot of the things, talking about the mock and fighting from the mock and ingesting data, that's an interoperability problem in a lot of ways. That's what, in the simulation world, we deal with that all the time, just making sure we don't have floating beach balls in a simulation when we look at exercises. So I think that just structurally, there's easy things levers that we could pull to increase the talent that we have through the development and then the future employment and further development of them and others that they'll work with.
Thanks. Artem, you've got some comments of your own, but are there other kinds of things that you've heard that might be of interest in your first comments here?
I want to riff off the .mlpf piece for a second. So we brought up AI2C, right? Army AI Integration Center in Pittsburgh. One of the interesting aspects of how the other services, I spoke about how the Navy's structured around these task forces, how the other services have structured AI, around a technology, is not unlike how the Navy is structured around technologies, in the past. So consider nuclear power, right? When we brought nuclear power to the Navy in the late 1940s and early 1950s, we stood up naval reactors, right? An organization dedicated to, the holistic management of nuclear power in the service. Similarly, what we're seeing in the Army is, Marine Corps and Air Force, is new organizational structures to facilitate that whole .mlpf construct, right? Developing new TTPs for the use of new tools that'll support from the mock, training sailors, or in this case, soldiers, to operate those tools, just like we train sailors today to perform maintenance. That organizational structure is facilitating the transition of that technology into the Army, Air Force, and potentially in the future, if the Navy chooses to reorganize, not around the task forces, but a different structure, we might see a similar outcome.
Thanks, Captain, what about you in terms of AI in the OIE space?
Yes, so in the OIE space, again, I'm at NPS, and my thesis right now is actually evaluating the reliability of AI detectors, specifically with text. I think that's one of the big things for Comstrat, which is also known as public affairs, is synthetic media, specifically with deep fakes. Near-peer adversaries can mass produce disinformation. And like, even with you guys, do you guys know if the article you're reading is AI authored or is it human authored? So that's one of the things I'm working on right now. And I think the big thing, one of my goals is to be able to provide the leaders, decision makers that we have of reliability of these AI tools that we have. Also to train our sailors and Marines to use these tools that's already out there. Like, we don't need to create new things. Everything industry has AI tools that we can use, but it's in terms of what is the reliability, how much trust can we put in these AI tools?
Thanks, Captain. Howard?
I want to riff off of Artem's piece about how do you do sustainment and, in my world, life cycle support plan. Life cycle support plan, if you look at naval aviation in 1930 to 1940, we went through several variants of aircraft, 8, 9, 10, depending upon which community you're talking about. Each of those went through a variety of different engines. So now, if we try to sustain that along the way we would traditionally do it, the way we have learned in our major capability acquisition portfolios, would that not be cost prohibitive? Should we not learn to do things like the Colonel was talking about with live virtual modeling, the learn to win kind of approach on bringing in a new way of doing the train, man, and equip? Not that we're ignoring it, but that we're thinking about it in a different way, in a more cost-effective way, yet giving the sailors what they need to do the job. Colonel, what do you think about that?
Yes.
Well,
I agree, but also, it makes me think that, especially with the news, I know the news recently is on everyone's mind, ours included, but to me that highlights the defense has to have a foot in this door all the way in, and we have to invest in our own capabilities and our own structures of doing things. We can't rely on industry alone. We have to have people who can understand and be honest brokers of it, develop that same kind of tech. And some of this stuff, reinforcement learning, we're producing stuff just like that at Naval Postgraduate School. That's not earth-shattering to us. So come and join. I think that there's opportunity for us to not wait, but then to also lead when we look at the evolution of these techs going forward.
Admiral Sweeney?
No, I was going to ask Artem. So is industry set the data architecture standard, or is the government, or is it a combination of both? Or
Yeah, I think I was actually about to jump in that too. So the industry or government question, right? So if you look at research and development spending since 1977, the curve is inverse, right? So government R&D spending has decreased and industry R&D spending has skyrocketed. So much so that government R&D accounts for less than 2% of, in the United States, 2% of R&D spending overall, right? So there isn't really a world in which government will set the tone. Now, standards, right? So NIST, capital S standards are absolutely a place where we set the tone, serving as an integrator, right? So if we provide common data platforms or common development environments for industry partners to work in, we facilitate processes such as our ATO process or potentially expedite that process. I think that's where our standardization comes into play. I absolutely don't think we'll be setting the tone, right? So, and I'll make the point wearing my S&T hat. Science and technology is, the government labs is not where leading AI research is happening. AI research is absolutely happening at government labs. That is not to disparage DARPA, ONR, et cetera. But leading AI research is happening in industry. So DOTM LPF is always actually going to come, if we're not careful, it will be to the right instead of to the left, because we will buy a capability, we'll buy a product, right? This isn't an ACAT 1 or ACAT 2 major capability acquisition. This is we procure a thing off the shelf and a sailor now has it the next day. So being smart on how we do, again, standards for the product development itself, but also how we think through how our operators and sailors are going to use it that has to happen much earlier than it is today.
So when we talk about the transition of replicator to the force, Admiral Sweeney, what do you think about the process which we need to think about how we sustain that capability over time?
Yeah, so I think my mind was going right to the replicator example that I talked about this morning. I think we're doing that in the robotic autonomous systems. We're buying robots, we're putting them in the Black Sea or in the Western Pacific or in Fourth Fleet to learn. And then we're doing the dot mil LPFP now. And then the sustainment piece is coming later. I think we got to be lock in step with DIU, frankly. I mean, I said it this morning, we've been a little bit behind there. What DepSecDef, the former DepSecDef initiated and led. But we need to be ahead so we can double down with our resources and so we can go faster with industry. That's kind of where I think we need to head.
So
So
what?
if-
Yeah, I'm sorry. So what does industry have, Admiral Brooks, that would be useful to you?
Tools, processes, procedures. Look, again, lowest common denominator. I just learned what AI ML meant earlier this week when they told me I was going to sit on this panel. No, I look at, I have a couple things, overarching, I need to take data and turn it into intelligence. What does that look like? Well, part of that for me is training the workforce to be able to understand and how to use AI ML tools. And I think the first thing they need to understand that it's not magic, right? That the AI ML part is like, in my simple mind, like the fourth step in the process. So first step, collect the data. Second step, normalize the data. Third step, train the machine by feeding it normalized data. This is what this is. Got that machine? Hey, here's another aspect of it. Got that machine? And then the fourth step is the AI ML magic, which is not magic. It requires a lot of work, time, effort, resources, which people don't understand, I think. I get a lot of, and then we'll AI ML it, hand waving. The fifth step, now I got the intelligence. Now I've taken data and I've turned it into intelligence. That's great. I need to give it to a decision maker in a format in which it's useful for them. Visualize it, and that can be anything from an update on a COP SIP to a PIM track that shows the best way to maneuver the force, or a co-analysis brief that shows, the validity of the data associated with the codes and a percentage of how we think which one will be more successful than the other. And so those are all those things I think I'm looking for as a customer. Help from whether it's a naval research facility or processes or industry.
So Howard, I got in front of you. You want to ask a question, or I'm going to go to Artem?
Well, I think, one of the things I wanted Artem to try to take on is in our world of going from platform-centric warfare to kill chain-centric warfare, when we are looking at all of these kill chains, it's about getting there the fastest and getting there with the right ordnance on top of target. So that's the bottom line in all of our business. So what do you think we need to do in terms of the way we are structured and going about using artificial intelligence to operate faster in a little loop of decision making?
Yes, I'll take this in probably a slightly different direction, but keeping it aligned to OODA loop, to closing the OODA loop, right? So AI is just software, right? And the advantage of software, and you've probably heard the term, especially coming out of Ukraine, software-defined warfare, right? The idea that the character of war has shifted and that software is redefining the kill chain, right? Artillery shells still matter, Tomahawks still matter, standard missile 2s and 6s still matter. But what software has done is not close the kill chain just by existing, right? Software closes the kill chain faster and tightens that OODA loop because software cycle times and software production times and software deployment and delivery times are much faster, right? So the rate of change is faster in the world of software and AI as opposed to the world of large platform-centric warfare because you update software, and in this case AI, much faster, right? It's the first derivative principle here. So the rate of change for software is faster, and so that OODA loop is getting tighter. Now there's an advantage there, right? So CNO's tasked us with being able to close that kill chain against the PRC, our peer competitor in the Western Pacific, no later than January 1st, 2027. New warships, I'm sure Admiral Skillman will be upset when I say this, but new warships are not coming new aircraft are not coming in that timeline. We're already in Palm 28, right? So, but software is, right? So software delivery to ships is impacting the Red Sea fight today. We are updating those ships at sea and making them more lethal, right? So that's a great example of software impacting the kill chain and doing it and closing that OODA loop faster because of the rate of change being faster for digital capabilities.
So, Admiral Sweeney, Artem is talking about speed and everything's going to go faster. Is that true? Is that true in the next 2 years? Are we going to get to the speed and the pace that he's talking about?
I hope so. No, hope's not a COA. I think I had good mentors. I think there's a yes and a no there. I think we need to be realistic about what. We'll just pick 2027 because the CNO's told us to be focused on that. I think we've gone so fast, specifically in robotic autonomous systems, that I don't think there's going to be collaborative swarming, all domain, AI driven. You hit a button from the mock and it works. I don't think that. I think we're on a path to that. I think there are domains that are farther ahead. I think there's certain software stacks that are farther ahead. I think we need to figure that out. And I think for the robotic autonomous systems, I think I need to tell the CNO what that is, or Admiral Kaler. And I think that's kind of the learning that's going on right now. But I do think there's an opportunity here. We talked about Replicator, and not just about the things or the software we're buying, but the DNA we're creating between the fleet and DC, frankly, and industry. So I think with that DNA and that cycle and our ability to innovate and be agile, I think we can get there, if that makes sense.
Yep. So, Captain, everybody who is senior to you, to your right and to your left, and I think you're the most junior panelist maybe here at West. You heard about .mil-PF, you heard about training from the admirals, you heard about training from the colonel. How do you train your young Marines to think faster in the world that they're talking about?
I think that's just one of the things is exposure to the AI tools that we have. I do believe a lot of Marines or sailors are very capable. They probably know more than us at times. I think that's one of the things that we should be looking at. And again, being at NPS, I want to master this so that when I get out there, I'm able to talk to those Marines that I have and be able to lead them, give them standards, give them direction and purpose to use these AI tools and be faster, as Dave said. So I'd say that's.
Okay. Howard, I think you had a question?
Well, it appears to me that as we bring in robotic autonomous systems globally, we are increasing exponentially the amount of sensor data that's out there for us to use. Now integrate that with the IC data that we have in our mocks, we have a ginormous problem of sorting through all that, fusing that, correlating that, coming up with a common operational picture, and then engaging where we choose. So that's the big payoff in the lethality end of AI for us. Now the question then becomes, there's also the administrative end, the maintenance end. What do you guys think about those aspects of AI too?
Yes, so in the Surface Navy, we intend to by the end of next year release a kind of holistic digital strategy where we outline specific use cases. Right, we don't want to. I was at a industry event a few weeks ago, and I got asked the question of how does the government think about buying AI? Right, we're not really buying AI. We're buying operational outcomes. They happen to use that as an underlying technology. So we think of the three areas where AI impacts. We've already touched kill chain. The other two are maintenance and administration / readiness. On the readiness front, we're already seeing that happen today, right? So for instance, at my headquarters here in Coronado, we have a readiness operations center where we're using machine learning techniques such as natural language processing to parse through naval messages. We are building analytics support tools for our commander to make more informed readiness decisions. And what a readiness decision is getting another ship, operationally ready to go on deployment. Similarly, on the maintenance front, conditions-based maintenance is a very promising technology. So we're seeing significant gains on certain subsystems not entire, engineering plants of a ship, but certain subsystems where previously, part failure or something was hard to predict. So we just kept 50 parts on the shelf, and that eats up, X amount of TOA at N96. And now instead we can predict reliably when a part will fail and have it, ready, just one ready instead of 15, for instance. So those three areas are our primary focus ones: lethality, readiness, and maintenance. And those are kind of the ways we're thinking about them.
Colonel?
I'm looking at a moves grad to my right, Captain Matt Robinson, who is the Deputy Director of the Marine Corps Software Factory. And I'm going to go keep harkening on this, that developing our own talent and employing them. And he works with very talented Marines. And I think as we look at this, not just in the current moment, but looking at our lower enlisted and even those in high school and pre-high school, that has to be something that has to shift. How do we do simple associations, simple basic concepts of artificial intelligence that we're going to have to cultivate as a nation in our education system, and then identify that as it comes into our services. And I don't think they're all 80-25s that work for you, Matt, right? You're the only one. But you lead a pretty awesome team that's doing a lot of great transition of capability out back to the fleet. So I'm going to just keep hitting that there's a developmental piece that has to span not just what we currently have, but as we look towards the future.
Okay, let's have other folks from the audience ask questions, and then we'll continue on. Yes, sir.
Clay, can you hear me? Hey, better. Okay. Clay Davis with ASRC Federal. So this is kind of actually a statement, and I'm curious to get your reaction to it. So with the training piece and the concern about making sure we, again, with all the .MLPF pieces of this, from our perspective as a firm that actually builds these tools and writes algorithms, if you do it correctly, you're actually making it intuitive, and your AI should be explainable so that when a decision maker is looking at it, they actually see, it's not a black box. You see what it's telling you, you see why it made the decision that it made. And so there really shouldn't be a huge training tail. And oh, by the way, there's a lot of existing systems that you can put AI engines behind that actually speed up the decision making, but the presentation is the same as what a sailor or Marine would see anyway. And the last point I would make is that, again, with a lot of these tools and the way we do UI UX now, you can give a 5-year-old an iPad and they're going to start clicking around and figuring it out.
Yep.
And so those Marines and sailors that mess with this stuff all the time, technology, they're actually going to give us the ideas and tell us how we actually use the things. We're going to give them to them, and then they're actually going to help us make it better. So I just want to kind of make that point that as you're working with industry, if they're giving you something that you have to spend hours and hours and hours for a sailor Marine to train on, they're not doing it right.
Yeah, we heard that this morning. So anybody want to make a comment? Admiral Brooks?
So I just have a comment. I talk a lot about being a consumer of data, other people's data, or other collected data, but I'm also a producer of a lot of data. And one of the things I need to train my workforce is change their workflow processes so that the data they produce is in a manner that is consumable, that is curated, that is normalized, and subject to further use by others with AI ML tools. And so that is kind of one of the things that I probably we're working toward, as directed by Department of Navy's Vision 2.0 and Intelligence Community Directive 504, training your folks to be able to do data in a manner that will subsequently lend itself to AI ML.
Any other comments on that?
Hey, good afternoon. Jim Raimondo, Special Assistant to the CNO. With this big setting, I wanted to mention something that did a very good job of putting into practice some of the things you were talking about. At the end of her SNA speech, she gave a video, 4-minute long video that a bunch of different folks produced. That is releasable now to the public. I believe it's on the Navy website. Talks about advanced manufacturing, AI, how to use decision aids, really good visualization of some of the things you were talking about. So I figured a good opportunity to promote that, and the fact that we've been working on it for a while to try to get it releasable as an aspirational kind of representation of all things you were talking about. Thank you.
If you really want to learn all about naval service AI, visit Dr. Jack back there. Colonel from ONR runs an AI working group for the naval service. That's absolutely fantastic. So mob him right after this. You're welcome.
Or Howard, your mom did too.
So, Artem, you had some interesting things that you were talking about with regard to how we bring this all together in packages and in ways to bring them in a layered fashion, much like what the Don CIO is talking about with regard to bringing things and wanting to get rid of all of the variation. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you're referencing the Justin Finelli's Horizons model, right? So the Navy has my favorite memo in DoD, which is probably an odd thing to say out loud, but it's called the Structured Divestment Memo. It's signed out by the acting Department of the Navy Chief Technology Officer, Mr. Justin Finelli. And the Navy is thinking about how to consolidate in a world in which we have a flat top line, right? The TOA grows at the rate of inflation, so you can't buy new things. About 1.5% of the budget is allocated to buying new things every year, right? So very little flexibility inside the execution year. 2027 is obviously 2 execution years away. So in order to buy new things, you have to divest from legacy things or consolidate legacy things. So we think of this through the traditional Horizons model. I think a lot of firms such as McKinsey have used this model. You go from technology in Horizon 3, which is something that's kind of future, maybe lower TRL, as we would say in acquisitions, to something that you can use soon. And that is a funnel. When you go from 3 to 1, stuff gets turned off, right? So not everything transitions to a 1. Not everything goes to the fleet. And so as we think about, bringing in new capabilities, we also have to think about the processes and capabilities that we're going to replace, right? So think about a sailor's workflow on a ship today and consider the 10 different software applications that they're touching or the 10 different subsystems that they're touching. At least digital systems are relatively easily turned off, right? When you do that, that not only changes the sailor's workflow of how a sailor is doing something, AI and automation helps there, that also frees up flexibility in the palm, right? Because you have now divested from something. So highly recommend looking at that structured divestment memo and the process, the way the Navy is thinking about divesting to invest in new digital capabilities.
So Colonel Rowan, M&S and AI involving in looking at programs and what they are, and then in capability. Is there a way to bring those in focus together so you get a better sense of affordability as well as capability, and do it in a team kind of a concept that is in the same simultaneous manner rather than linear?
I think so, ma'am. I think that there's an opportunity to combine. There's a lot of rich data that we have both on the financial side and then also operational capability and what we're able to deliver. So to be able to mix those together and then to visualize that in an M&S space, for instance, just to provide a commander with some, a better decision space to see if I invest this much, this is the capability I will get. Maybe it's not an F-35 I need. Maybe my low-cost drone swarm is going to produce the same kind of capability at a much lower cost. And even better, let me show it to you in something like the Omniverse or something like a synthetic environment that's going to, to invest more of the things that we are divesting, and we can increase that capability and that capacity and save American treasure, which, life and money and other things.
Okay.
Well, along those lines, we can also start thinking about the way we do things programmatically. For example, as we build programs at the Echelon 1 at OpNav, we can look at the actual analytics of each of those programs, the budget inputs, the requirements, the performance, and begin to use artificial intelligence to give us better programmatic predictions, better budgets, better outcomes. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so the one of the programs of record that is of interest in the Surface Navy today is Frigate, FFG 62. If you read the news, naval news, you'll find that Frigate is delayed for a number of reasons. We know, I think, the AC 101 course at DAU, you learn that 80% of cost growth in a program in a major capability acquisition is associated with the last 10 to 20% of additional requirements that were added. So being able to trace how Frigate, which as a program has gotten, like the physical ship itself has gotten too big, being able to trace how that has happened, doing that traceability from program requirements, through the CDD down to the addition of an individual engineer adding a component that grew the weight of that ship. That's happening with an AI tool, actually. So Fincantieri has partnered with Palantir to help the Navy deliver frigate on time, or as close to on time as possible, using an AI tool to trace through all the programmatics and requirements. So AI that's absolutely, I've been that kind of in the readiness and administrative back office category of where AI is helping us today.
Admiral Sweeney, you have been the lead dog, the leader in a number of naval implementation plans and the framework in AI, in RAS, and in the warfighting Uber NIF. I was talking to an international officer the other day from one of our allies, and he said, "I have no idea what's going on." And in terms of how does this all come to a data strategy, an information strategy, so that you can do better war fighting?
Yes. So let's go back to the POM piece of this and the data piece, I think, ma'am, and the allies and partners, which I'm having dinner with my AUKUS Pillar 2 allies and partners tonight for the record, so I'll help fill them in on that. I'm trying, we have a tool, we have a couple tools. Flint, I think, is one. PDAS is another. I think CNA has a bunch of tools that is trying to help us work through the programmatics, the budgeting piece, and the requirements so we can get to a digital POM. I mean, we're not there yet. I have a pilot actually with Palantir. I'm working on the Open Dagger contract to try to kind of duplicate that as well. But that is work to do. And I think it's work that industry's already done. I'm sure on the commercial side, they do this every day. And so there's no reason why on the government side we can't do this. And we just haven't gotten there yet.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I want to go down here and ask.
Commander Scotland.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this goes back to, Eric Boer, 3rd Fleet. Lieutenant Colonel Rowan, I liked what you said about kind of getting left into America's youth. So we did it with Sea Perch for robotics, and we did it with cyber. Are we reaching out now to like the Sea Cadets, Young Marines, ROTC, summer internships in AI?
So I think there's a couple things. One I could speak definitively on. I know that at our school in particular, we have a wonderful STEM outreach program that we have a lot of talented high schoolers that come. They come work in my lab every summer and then come back to school. They go to their school, whether that's high school, summer, and college. They come back and we get this nice iteration of them doing that, getting exposed to kind of defense-related projects, and that's an awesome thing. So that's also hitting maybe a little bit of the recruiting, like, hey, there's an opportunity for a year if you want to throw your uniform on and do it for us. But I know that there are efforts in the K-12 space to start even at kindergarten levels with simple, we say AI training, that's just simple association. Many of your children probably do that now. And if we can, that has to start, or we're already behind. We can't just focus on me with the gray hair right now trying to catch up, who grew up on Windows 95 playing America's Army, right? Which is developed by the Moves Institute at MPS, by the way. So I think that investment at the lower level we're already seeing, and now it's going to be incumbent on us to recruit that into the services, and also have a structure and a system that encourages that and supports their further development once they reach the uniform, and not just staying on a traditional timeline.
Okay, so we're going to go down the line. So Emma Brooks, we're going to go all the way down to here to Howard. What would you say you want the Navy or the audience or the nation to know about your role with your usage of AI and its maturity over time with regard to what you do to support the warfighter?
Ma'am, I would love to answer that question, but first I'm dismayed by Lieutenant Colonel Rowan's remark about how gray his hair is.
Admiral, let's stop right there, Admiral.
Ma'am, I could sum up what I would like, Artem or industry or the Navy to do for me with regard to AI, and that is help me help you. I have lots of things that I need to do with data. Help me help you do that.
Thank you. Admiral Sweeney?
Yeah, so I think I gave an example fight from the mock where we want all the robots, long-range fires, counter C5ISR&T, sensor data from space to undersea, all to be kind of collated, coalesced, put up on a COP for us to have COA development, talk to someone in the ether, AI, to give us the right COA. I think what we need to do, there's a lot of talent and there's a lot of individual projects going on right now. I'm not going to say they're in stovepipes, but what I want and what I feel like what I'm working with Admiral Kano on at NAVWAR is to kind of get to an exemplar of how we get to that, right? Because we're not going to get to that overnight. And so we're trying to bite off too much. And so I think we're trying to do that a little bit with the robotic autonomous systems right now in Replicator and align it to a key operational problem, Western Pacific, what Admiral Kaler talked about this morning, and kind of work towards that, like a sandbox kind of environment where industry can come, the government can come. It's aligned to the warfighters. The warfighters are there. So it's fully in support of them. That's kind of what I would like.
So you've now heard me say anything about NPS, but in that line, we're a great place to have sandbox work done, and we do it almost every day. And so the sandbox concept has been very productive for us as we've been able to deliver to a warfighter in a safe place. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
let me just jump on MPS for a second. I was the Deputy 7 last year, so I think what Admiral Rondeau has done is fabulous. Inside MPS, I never went to MPS, but that's our DNA. That's the Navy DNA. Those are our students coming from the fleet, and we shouldn't just be giving it away to all these other UARCs and FFRDCs. I love you too. You're doing great work, but we need to make sure our naval innovation, hopefully a center soon to come, is cultivated, and we use that at MPS. So thanks for all that.
I thank you, Admiral. Okay, Colonel.
I'll just say invest. Invest not only in the technology that's happening, invest in your people, both from the makers, the consumers, and then ultimately all that's going to lead to decision makers. So just invest in your people. Thank you.
I think since this is mainly an industry crowd, the message is come talk to us. Let us show you our use cases. I know I said maintenance, administrative / readiness and lethality, but come see what a sailor's workflow on a ship actually looks like. Come see the tools they're using today, so you can show us like products that fix those those challenges in the future. We are not interested. We absolutely want to get RFP or send RFPs and see your memos. We are much more interested in seeing a product that fixes a problem and an operationally relevant problem, like Admiral Sweeney said.
Thanks. Captain?
I'm just going to go based off them. Invest in your people. I think that was a good statement. And then industry, do come talk to us so you can learn about us and vice versa. And one more shout out to Marine Corps Innovation. I think they do it well. They have young Marines out there who are interested, want to be a part of this growth. So.
Howard?
So I see robotic autonomous systems as a major inflection point for our Navy and for our military, for that matter. Moving into from there to hybrid fleet, where we're using a combination of man and unmanned, is critical. It's absolutely necessary, and it is one of the things that a key enabler is artificial intelligence. To that end, we want to be the best world class in it. Our mission is to be able to keep the seas safe, and when called upon, to dominate the seas. And that is exactly what we are looking for in robotic autonomous systems, and AI is a key enabler to that mission.
So finally, I do have white hair, so I will tell you is that I don't know that I remember Sputnik, but Sputnik happened, and it was a surprise. And what was in the American DNA was our ability to respond to surprises with even greater things. As we think about AI and warfighting, and you heard, of course, the notion that the real source of our victories and our ability to do better is in our people, and that really matters. It's also in how we think about things differently. And so if we try to follow the surprise, it may or may not be very useful. If we respond to the surprise, we will come up with American answers that are diverse, that are bright, and that are applied, and that are in the free market of ideas. Sell the idea, make sure it works, and then let's go. So for AI in warfighting, it is not the objective. The objective is making the decision maker, the human being who has a heart and a brain and conscience, better in his or her ability to make those lethal calls, those lethal kinds of decisions. That's why we at NPS live and breathe. That's why all of you are here, is that you are interested in winning as warfighters, and by that, we will do well, and we will come back with a whole different answer to deep seek even than they have thought about. So go out and let's do great things with AI to make the warfighter win. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the Naval Institute and AFC International, I'd like to thank all of the panelists and all of you in the audience. As a token of our appreciation, we have a copy of AI at War by Sam Tangradi and George Galbraith for each of you. Thank you. Have a nice afternoon, everyone.